afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propaganda Review with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Covering back again here the OKw Ausf, since it's been changed rather somewhat in its function. I rather felt like, the best option would be to create a new review so people actually knew what they were getting this time around, since the previous review doesn't quite cover it now. I mean, sort of in terms of what units there are, it's still sort of applicable, but even there's been changes to some units, but overall it's how the OKw Ausf itself works as an army that's been changed. Now, previously it was sort of a lot more lumberous, not quite as aggressive as they actually wanted to be. I mean, you'd see sort of notes being put up by Rick saying, they'd early game aggressive faction. That wasn't quite there. Now it's actually more there. They have a lot more expensive units. In fact, they got no sort of really cheap infantry units. They got the Kugelwagen, which is the cheapest, but exactly not what you'd call a combat unit, though it can be used to support and harass. But of course, there's the Kugelwagen. I think sort of really, just really bounces the OKw Ausf into something more new and interesting. Again, I think there's part of the key here to the OKw Ausf early game, since it allows them to be more aggressive, to be harassing, and of course that will try and dictate the tempo of the fighting a bit more. Plus, of course, a slightly cheaper Sturm Pioneers now, which also certainly helps. And again, it gives the OKw Ausf more direction for sort of pushing their early game. And again, that rather means again they're now more of an early game aggressive faction, since again that way they have choices. Combined with the trucks here, of course, they got battle group headquarters, they got Mechanized Regiment, and they got Schwer Panzer Quarters. Also a bit more flavour of the old Panzerlegion, specifically with the Mechanized Regiment. Lux, Puma, I mean some early sort of potent light vehicles that could do a lot of damage to the opponent properly utilised, particularly if the opponent's not prepared for them. And of course, if they aren't, well, I suppose they're kind of asking for them. They do have support weapons, but again, they're sort of now a bit more further away for the OKw Ausf. They don't have a sort of initial easy access to suppressor weapons. They also struggle sort of dealing with the Dark In units, which I suppose also reflects a bit there the actual Wehrmacht there in the Ardennes, where again, for example, they got bogged down by Bastogne and other places. I mean, they're great if they could sort of sweep away, but again, they're not sort of good initially if they sort of drop their tempo. They need to keep up moving, need to keep harassing, need to keep hitting points, need to try and ensure they don't just get halted in one spot at a time. So in that sense, that's overall sort of more of a positive direction. Of course, the battle group headquarters does probably to some extent rather undercut the whole sort of aggressive nature, since again it is cheaply accessible and it can allow to quickly set up sort of forward retreat point and heal point and all that, and again that's a bit more too defensive, and again still works against it really. Part of me thinks it needs to work away or make sort of the healing a later addition on top of it, otherwise it's just a bit too well, again, it works against it overall. I mean, overall, you can sort of consider the battle group headquarters the slower tempo of things, with flak half-tracks, infantry guns, infantry half-tracks, with mechanized regiments, more speedy, further speed, that is. But again, I do think the healing does perhaps create a bit more of a sort of play that feels a bit awkward there with the OKw Ausf, and probably could have been dealt with a bit more. But that's about it, really. Perhaps remove the forward retreat point, instead give them something else. But there you go, really. Of course, with the munitions now fuel flowing free again, you got more options in that sense. Again, they can use more vehicles aggressively, but again, they're very much more an aggressive faction. They can actually be played as an aggressive faction, which previously they couldn't really. I mean, that was basically one of the problems. They couldn't really play it that much as an aggressive faction without relying a lot on cheesy tactics, which isn't frightfully exciting now, is it? So in that sense, again, there's more options. Again, there's more options for playing against them, and overall it leads to a faction which is more interesting, fun to play, and fun to play against. I mean, there'll still be problems, and again, to some extent, I feel they're sort of surrounding the battle group headquarters and that healing. I really think they just sort of need to do something about it, change it out a bit, because it's overall perhaps a bit too good there still. But again, overall more functional faction, more fun faction. King Tiger's also there, but now it's a call enough. You've got all three trucks. Probably could be, and I think should be changed, so you actually need all three trucks at the same time upgraded. If one gets disrupted, again, you sort of have to get the backup, so that way you can't just sort of roll towards the King Tiger with any ease. Jagdpanzer, not really the best unit there. It's still kind of awkward, not really good. Panther 4, Panther's better, but also you've got a good, nice mix of armor, so if you can hold it up until that point. And of course, with the changes there, overall the rest of the doctrines also flow a lot better with the OKw Ausf. I mean, overall the commanders there, I mean, they do perform reasonably nicely with the OKw Ausf now. I mean, again, overall, nice, aggressive faction with a lot of options. Got Fallschirmjägers, Jägers, got Flammhetzers, I haven't checked that out, which is good. It's got flak half-tracks, Kugelwagen. Again, it's got a lot of mobile elements. And again, that does lead to a more aggressive, rapid attack faction that can harass, that can hit here and there. But again, if it gets bogged down by sort of more fortified thing, can struggle a lot more, which again is, I suppose, rather how I suppose an early aggressive game faction is supposed to play. Again, it's not without its flaws. Again, I do think the Battle Group headquarters in that sense, again, does work a bit against it. And also in terms of the defensive doctrines, while they do have flank emplacements, the flank emplacement at the moment doesn't really work out, so that's a bit of an issue there. And again, the Jagdpanzer's just kinda... It needs its MD-42 it's supposed to have to sort of work sort of reasonably a bit more flexibly. And there's probably going to be some need further down the road of some slight tech changes, perhaps requiring some upgrades, a bit like how the British do, but again, overall, it's still an overall improvement compared to the old Oberkommando. It flows better, it feels better, it's more fun, and again, while there are some problems, overall, if you were to say, Dane, should I buy the Oberkommando vest? I'd say, well, you're probably not going to go wrong in town getting it now compared to before, where I was a lot more apprehensive. And personally, I just really didn't enjoy it at all, but now I can actually say to myself, hey, I'm playing the Oberkommando vest, and I'm having fun, because I'm not being restrained by an artificial resource limit. Now it's more tactics and strategy, and how the faction plays in a more natural sense, which is overall more fun and interesting. So that overall does lead to things. Veterans 4 and 5 of course are still there, but slightly nerfed, and that's not quite there. They do add a bit more punch in the long run, again sort of making up for the fact again that they can be bogged down and such, and also means you have to be a bit more careful about the more veteran Oberkommando West units, sort of give them a bit of extra punch that way. But again, one of the issues you have to keep in mind there is Oberkommando West, of course, is manpower bleed. Overall, all the units you have now are rather in the expensive end. You don't really have something like a 200 or less unit can sort of flood the field with like some other players do. So in that sense, you do risk, suffering a lot there if your opponent plays correctly, and your basic infantry, the Fultz Grenadiers, can also quickly find themselves outmaneuvered if the Allies just upgrade the infantry. So there are a lot of things there to contend with now as the Oberkommando West, and again, it does lead to, I think, a much more fun to play faction, perhaps also a bit stronger in some senses, but at the same time not, ridiculously strong. So I think that rather covers the Oberkommando West. Of course, it's not sort of really covering balance, just sort of more how it actually plays in the field. Of course, balance is always going to change with patches and such, and that's going to be a bit ridiculous. But in terms of mechanics compared to the old Oberkommando West, this is a much better one. Much more functional, and also something that reflects better, I think, overall sort of the fighting in the Ardennes. Not perfectly, there's plenty of things that could do that sort of more properly fitted, but overall it does a better job. In particular, again, the whole struggling again with the units sort of just stuck in around buildings and such, it can really sort of just slow down the Oberkommando West, and again, I think that does fit the build quite nicely. So, again, can I recommend this? Yes. 1.5 thumb up. Again, the Battle Group headquarters does feel still a bit awkward in that regard, and probably needs a bit of looking into. It probably should have the healing part there as a separate upgrade, if anything. But I would also put more emphasis on the medical supplies, the ability of the Sturmpionier. And a part of me still thinks, if it's supposed to be sort of the Ardennes thing, you still need a sort of frontline reinforcing vehicle like a half-track. You can't do all those Panzer Division charging force without a 250 half-track and sort of used properly or something like that. So a slight comment there. I'd still like to see a 251 half-track. But overall, good stuff there. So hopefully this review has sort of been helpful for those wondering. Again, it perhaps is a bit awkward on some elements. Again, it's always a bit hard to describe how to sort of cover it when I've already covered it, for starters. It's been changed so much throughout, over a year and a half, and then we sort of get this now. Which again is... It's not very common, certainly not in company's history, so again, it does leave me a bit, unsure how to sort of, fully describe the experience. But again, sort of considering again their goal is sort of like an aggressive faction along the lines of some of the Ardennes, I'd say they're much closer to that now than they were with the old Oberkommando West, and I think that's a good start. Again, there's some things I still like to see. I still feel like the Volksgrenadiers don't actually reflect Volksgrenadiers that much. They still next to somehow, I think, some assault rifles and light machine guns, but go figure. Anyways, I'm going a bit off track there, but again, overall, I do think this is a much better fit, and overall, a much better purchase now. So again, if you're on the ledge, unsure if you had to get it or not, I'd say you can go ahead now without too much issue. It's overall a much fun faction. So thank you all for joining in. Again, hopefully this has been educational, hopefully this has been helpful in you deciding your purchase and thoughts. And if you're watching, feel free to subscribe, tell a friend, share it with everyone. This is Imperial Lynching. Cheers, and thank you all for watching. Bye.